She was already there when I pulled up the dirt road after 3 long years away. The old cabin stood where I left it. But the first thing I saw wasn't the porch or the pine trees. It was her. A blonde woman in a pastel sweater stood right by the gate, waving a bright orange "No Trespassing" sign like it was a trophy. She nailed it onto my fence post and turned around as if she caught a criminal red-handed. "Excuse me," she shouted before I even stepped out of my truck. "You can't be here. This property is under HOA protection. Leave before I call the cops." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the audacity was unreal. "Lady, this is my land. I built that cabin with my own hands." "Who the hell are you?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb with me. I'm the president of the association now, and according to our bylaws, this land is restricted. That cabin doesn't even belong to you anymore." Behind her, I noticed a small group of neighbors gathering, whispering like they'd been waiting for this show. Some of them looked guilty, some entertained. One older man even muttered, "Here we go," under his breath. I stepped closer, my boots crunching on the gravel. "You put signs on my property? Without my permission?" She smirked and crossed her arms. "Your permission? Sweetheart, you don't get a say anymore. You abandoned it. I've been keeping it under control. And now if you don't leave, I'll make sure law enforcement drags you off." I paused, feeling that slow burn in my chest. But instead of exploding, I just said one line that froze her fake confidence in place. "Call them. Let's see what happens when the real owner answers the door." Her phone was already in her hand before I finished speaking. She jabbed at the screen with shaking fingers, putting on a show for the little crowd behind her. "Yes, this is an emergency," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "There's a trespasser on my property. Armed and aggressive." I froze. Armed? Aggressive? I hadn't even raised my voice. She was twisting reality right in front of all of them. The neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but not one of them spoke up. "Lady, that's a false report," I said calmly, though my jaw clenched. "You realize that's a crime, right?" She waved me off like she owned the world. "We'll see who's committing crimes when the cops get here. Enjoy your last few minutes of freedom." Her arrogance stung. But instead of arguing, I walked straight past her and unlatched my gate. She gasped and stepped back like I had pulled a weapon. "What do you think you're doing?" she screeched. "Going home," I said simply, brushing past the new wooden signs she had hammered into my fence. They looked ridiculous against the old cedar posts I had set in the ground myself years ago. Every one of them screamed her name, not mine. The crowd parted as I walked toward the cabin. I could feel their eyes following me, some curious, some afraid. My hands itched to rip down those fake signs, but I held back. I wanted witnesses when the truth came out. Karen stomped after me, her voice climbing with every word. "You can't ignore me. This isn't your cabin anymore." The HOA seized it, legally. I stopped on the porch steps and turned slowly. "Funny thing about the law," I said, looking her dead in the eyes. "It actually works better when you tell the truth." And that's when the distant siren cut through the mountain air. The siren grew louder, echoing off the trees until a sheriff's cruiser rolled up the gravel road. Karen straightened her shoulders like she'd just summoned the cavalry. She marched toward the car, waving her arms. "Officer, over here! Arrest him before he runs." The deputy stepped out, hand resting on his holster, scanning the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, steady and cautious. Karen didn't waste a second. She jabbed her finger at me. "That man is trespassing on private property. He threatened me and refuses to leave. I want him removed immediately." The deputy's eyes shifted to me. "Sir, is that true?" I held his gaze. "No, deputy. This is my cabin, my land, my deed. I just returned after 3 years, and she's been posting fake signs on my property." Karen laughed, high and sharp. "Oh, please." "He's making it up. He abandoned this place. The HOA took control. I'm the president, and I have every right to keep him out." The deputy raised a brow. "Shui, huh? Ma'am, this county doesn't even recognize HOA authority on private land outside city limits." Her face faltered for a split second, then hardened again. "He's lying. Check the records if you don't believe me." The deputy nodded slowly. "Good idea. I'll call it in." He stepped aside, radio crackling as he gave dispatch. The parcel number on his GPS. The crowd went dead silent. Karen folded her arms, but I saw the twitch in her jaw. She was nervous. I leaned against the porch rail, keeping my voice low but clear. You sure you want to double down on this lie, Karen? Because when those records come back, you're gonna wish you'd stayed off my land. Her smirk wavered, but she didn't back down. The radio crackled back with dispatch's voice. Confirmed. Property deed still in the name of... And then my full name rolled out into the quiet air. Every head turned toward Karen. The deputy looked straight at her. Ma'am, looks like this land belongs to him. Care to explain why you've been reporting otherwise? Karen's smile twitched, but she forced a laugh. That must be outdated paperwork. I filed new claims through the HOA. He abandoned this property, so it defaults to community control. Everyone here knows it. The neighbors shuffled awkwardly. A couple exchanged glances, but no one backed her up. One man muttered, "That's not how it works," under his breath. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket and held it up. This is the updated deed. Taxes paid, recorded last month. You still want to argue with county records? Karen's face went pale, but she wasn't done. She pointed dramatically at me. He forged that. Don't believe a word. He's dangerous. He threatened to hurt me if I didn't back down. The deputy's eyes narrowed. Threatened you? Did anyone here witness that? Silence. No one moved. A woman in a wide-brimmed hat finally spoke. Officer. He never threatened her. All he said was, "This is his land." That's it. Karen spun toward the woman, furious. You stay out of this. You don't know what you heard. But the deputy was already stepping closer to Karen. His tone shifted, firmer now. Ma'am, making a false police report is a serious crime. Posting fake notices and signs on someone else's property? That's trespassing. Maybe even fraud. Karen's hands trembled as she tried to keep her posture. You don't understand. I was protecting the neighborhood. He doesn't deserve this land. I didn't even need to say anything. The deputy's eyes locked on her, waiting for her next mistake. And just then, a second police cruiser pulled up, and the real twist began. The second cruiser stopped with a crunch of gravel, and when the door opened, I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't just another deputy. It was Sheriff Daniels himself, the man I hadn't seen in years. He stepped out slow, adjusting his hat, and the crowd shifted back like they knew something serious was about to go down. Karen's face lit up like she had just won the lottery. She ran straight to him, her voice shrill with triumph. Sheriff! Thank God you're here. Arrest this man! He broke into my property and tried to intimidate me. I'm the HOA president and I demand protection. The sheriff didn't even look at her. His eyes found me across the yard, and for a long moment neither of us said a word. Then he let out a short breath and shook his head. Well, I'll be damned. Thought you weren't ever coming back. Karen froze. Wait, you know him? The sheriff finally turned to her, his expression hard. Know him? Ma'am, he's the rightful owner of this land. I've hunted with his family since I was a kid. His father left him this cabin fair and square. The crowd murmured. Karen's confidence cracked, but she tried one last push. Sheriff, you can't take his side just because you're friends. He abandoned this place. That makes it community property. The HOA has rights here. Sheriff Daniels's voice cut like steel. Lady, let me make this clear. HOA rights stop where private deeds begin. You've been trespassing, harassing, and filing false reports. If I look into those signs you posted and find one forged document, you'll be in cuffs before sundown. Karen's face drained of color. She stammered, but no words came. The neighbors behind her finally started whispering, louder this time, some even laughing at the way she had just been exposed. I stood quiet, letting it all sink in. But then the sheriff added something that twisted the knife deeper. And you should count yourself lucky, because if he wanted, he could press charges right now. Karen's mouth fell open. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. The sheriff's words hung in the air like thunder. Karen's lips trembled, but her pride wouldn't let her back down completely. She straightened her shoulders, her voice sharp but weaker now. You can't just let him take over. If you knew how long I've been protecting this place, keeping people out, making sure it looked decent. I cut her off. Protecting it? You mean nailing trash signs on my fence and scaring off anyone who came near? That's not protecting, Karen, that's stealing. The neighbors finally found their courage. The old man from earlier spoke up, shaking his head. He's right. We told you plenty of times this wasn't your land. You just kept saying the HOA had power here. Most of us knew it was nonsense, but you threatened to fine us if we didn't go along. A younger couple nodded quickly. She even told us if we didn't respect HOA rules, we could lose access to the lake. We didn't want trouble, so we stayed quiet. Sheriff Daniels's jaw tightened. That true? He asked Karen, his tone warning. Karen's mask slipped. I did what I had to. Somebody had to be in charge. If he wasn't here, then it was my responsibility. This whole valley would have fallen apart without me. I stepped down from the porch slowly, every eye locked on me. My boots hit the dirt as I moved closer to her. I kept my voice steady. Karen, let me tell you something. This land, this cabin, they're not just property. They're my family's legacy. And you, I pointed at the sign still nailed into the post. You tried to erase it just so you could play Queen of the Valley. The sheriff cleared his throat. I think I've heard enough. Karen, I'm warning you one last time. Take those signs down, apologize to these folks, and leave this man's property. Or I'll put you in the back of my cruiser right now. Her bravado cracked completely then. Her hands shook as she tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came out. The crowd was no longer with her. Every whisper, every stare, it was all against her now. But before she could answer, one of the deputies approached the sheriff, quietly, and whispered something in his ear. The sheriff's brows furrowed, and he turned back to Karen. Interesting, he said slowly. Care to explain? Why the HOA account you've been running has been collecting money from these neighbors, with no legal registration behind it? The gasp that went through the crowd hit harder than any siren. Karen's face went white as the sheriff's words landed. What? That's a mistake, she stammered, clutching her sweater like it could shield her. The HOA is real, it's official, The deputy cut her off, holding up a small folder. We checked the state registry. There is no HOA here, no filings, no legal authority, which means every dollar you collected from these people, he let the words hang, was fraud. The neighbors erupted at once. Angry voices rose from every side. You took thousands from us. You said it was for road repairs. You made us pay for your new gate. Karen spun toward them, panicked. No! That money went to community projects. I was keeping this place safe for all of you. But nobody was buying it anymore. The young couple who had spoken earlier stepped forward, their faces red with anger. We gave you half our savings because you said the county was going to fine us if we didn't. You lied to us. The sheriff's hand rested on his belt, calm but firm. Ma'am, I've got more than enough to bring you in. Fraud, impersonation of authority, harassment, false police reports. You want me to keep going? Her eyes darted between him, me, and the neighbors, desperate for a lifeline. But all she saw was betrayal and fury staring back at her. I finally stepped closer, locking eyes with her. Karen, this didn't have to happen. You could have just left my land alone. But you wanted power, and now you're about to lose everything. The sheriff gave a short nod to his deputy. Cuff her! The deputy moved forward, pulling out the restraints. Karen backed up, shaking her head. No! You can't do this to me! I am the HOA! The crowd's anger turned to laughter at her final outburst, bitter and mocking. She had built her whole kingdom on lies, and now it was crumbling right in front of her. But just as the deputy reached for her wrist, Karen's eyes snapped to me with one last flash of defiance. This isn't over, she hissed. You don't know what you've started. And that single line made everyone pause, because it didn't sound like a bluff. Karen's words hung in the air like poison, but the deputy didn't wait. The cuffs clicked tight around her wrists, and the sheriff gave the order. Get her in the car! The crowd watched in silence as the so-called HOA president was walked to the cruiser. Her fake authority stripped away in seconds. As the door slammed shut, one neighbor turned to me, guilt in his voice. We should have spoken up sooner. She had us all scared. I shook my head. What matters is it ends today. No one here owes her another dollar, and nobody's going to lose their home because of her lies. The sheriff gave me a look of respect, one veteran to another. You did right keeping calm. A lot of folks would have handled this with fists or worse. You let the truth do the work. Karen's muffled shouting from the back seat made a few people chuckle. But I didn't. I just walked up to that ugly orange "No Trespassing" sign she'd nailed on my fence, yanked it free with one hard pull, and tossed it in the dirt. The wood cracked, the letters split. I turned back to the crowd and said, the one line that went straight to the heart of everyone there. This land was mine yesterday, it's mine today, and no one will ever steal it again. The neighbors clapped. Some even came forward to shake my hand. For the first time in years, I felt like the valley belonged to me again, not just in paperwork, but in spirit. The sheriff tipped his hat and said, "Welcome home," and as the cruisers rolled away, carrying Karen toward the justice she had earned, I looked at my cabin against the fading sun. The fight was over. My land was safe. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just about a cabin. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to take what's yours. Because in the end, freedom isn't given. It's defended.